Hello everyone and welcome to day 14 of the 30-day film challenge, and today I'm going to be talking about a movie that depressed me. That is the prompt of this day in the 30-day film challenge, and of course I have chosen Prisoners because this is a really dark and messed up and just dreadful movie, and I love it. This is a very well directed movie by Denis Villeneuve, shot by Roger Deakins, who is my favorite cinematographer, who did, both of them actually worked on Blade Runner 2049, which is my day 2 of this 30-day film challenge, and of course this movie stars Hugh Jackman and Jake Gyllenhaal, who I've been featuring heavily in this 30-day film challenge, from Logan to Donnie Darko, which I love these two actors, and they are excellent in this movie. So what I wanted to talk about in this video was how this movie is really dark and it's really difficult to watch, but the characters in this movie are so fascinating to pick apart, and the reasons why they do the things that they do. And this movie is really about obsession and about faith and about a whole bunch of things that are all based on these characters desperate to solve this mystery that is the disappearance of Hugh Jackman's daughter and of Terrence Howard's daughter. And so I highly recommend all you guys to go see this movie if you have not already, unless you kind of have, if the premise of this movie kind of turns you off and you think, okay, I don't want to watch some kidnapping movie, especially if you are parents. This movie is very difficult to watch, and I wouldn't recommend this movie necessarily to everyone, but if you're a lover of film, this is a must watch. This is an extremely well directed movie and very well plotted, and the storyline and the twists and turns and the mystery that it presents is very riveting. So this movie really is wrapped up in a maze. That's what this mystery is. It's one giant maze, and you get to see Hugh Jackman's character kind of doing his own investigation of the disappearance of his daughter, along with Jake Gyllenhaal's character doing his own investigation because he is the actual detective in this movie, and both of them are excellent in this movie. And Jake Gyllenhaal is kind of reserved in this role. He's not as loud and in your face as you would normally see him in other movies. He's really laid back and reserved, and he looks back and he analyzes everything, and he very closely listens to people and really tries to figure out this mystery that is wrapping this entire town of the disappearance of these two girls, and he becomes obsessed with it. And that's why I love about his character so much, because he loses it but towards the end of the movie, when he has David Dastmalchian's character in jail and he snaps and he attacks him, causing the death of that character later on. And it's heartbreaking to see this detective really try so hard and become so obsessed, because he's always solved his cases. He's never had a case that was left open-ended. He always solved things, whether it ended good or bad. He was always able to solve the mysteries that he's presented, and so that's why he's kind of attached to this case. He's a very good detective, and every time you see him in this movie, whether he's investigating Hugh Jackman's character because he's doing some fishy things, or he's investigating Paul Dano or David Dastmalchian, he is very analytical, and he takes all these things and he takes all this evidence and he's able to piece things together in such a smart way. And what the movie does so well is you're able to follow him and you feel like the detective trying to pull things together, but since you are watching the movie from these two perspectives, you get all the evidence, whereas each of these characters only gets half of them. And so let's get into Hugh Jackman's character. This is one of my favorite performances from him. I think it's definitely in my top 3. His performance in Logan is incredible. This one is right up there with it, along with Bad Education. He is excellent in all 3 of those movies, but this is definitely one of his best performances as this truly desperate father that is so wanting to find his daughter, and he will do anything to do so. And you see right from the beginning of the movie, right after she disappears, that he is pushing the line. He is on the razor's edge of losing his mind. And when he goes to tackle Paul Dano's character once he's let out of the prison, not convicted, because of course they suspect him for being the main suspect, but there's no true evidence because Paul Dano's character, he has the mind of a 10-year-old, and how could he kidnap these girls and make them disappear in one night and have really no evidence in his RV of any struggle? There's no evidence really of him besides placing him on the scene at the time of the disappearance, which is very damning for him. But there's no true hard evidence that put him in custody and put him in jail, because he really didn't do it. And when you find out by the end of the movie how he's connected to this entire situation, it becomes very fascinating. But Hugh Jackman's character, he is not buying it. He tackles him as soon as he's let out of prison, and Paul Dano says that they didn't cry until I left them. And that is when Hugh Jackman completely loses it. He takes him and he tortures him for the majority of this movie. And that's where this movie becomes very hard to watch. It's torture. Like, it's very difficult to see this character, Hugh Jackman's character, really fall from grace and lose his faith and start drinking again. And he has completely lost himself. And it's very hard to watch him, this man, spiral down this path of violence and of just pure pure evil, really. And so you have all this evidence. I don't really want to go through all the pieces of evidence, or else I'll be here talking all day. But you have the evidence that Jake Gyllenhaal has found out through David Dastmalchian's character and finding all these mazes, and how he has the clothes of the children in his house, and it's very creepy. That entire scene is very unsettling. It reminds me a lot of Sicario. And then you have Hugh Jackman's character with kind of solving the mystery with Paul Dano's character and his aunt. And when you look at the movie from an outside perspective as a viewer, you can piece all these pieces of evidence together and find out, okay, so the aunt of Paul Dano's character is a true culprit of this movie, and she was married to the guy that Loki, Detective Loki, found, Jake Gyllenhaal's character found, about like maybe a third away into the movie, of this guy in the basement of this priest's house. And this guy was a serial killer, and he had taken children before. And so the aunt and this guy from the basement were married, and they had a son who had died, and they started taking children ever since that point. And the husband ran off, and he died in that basement later on. But she decided to keep on doing the things that they've been doing, and it turns out that Paul Dano's character was one of the victims that had been taken by this couple. And same thing with David Dastmalchian's character, and they had both been just torn apart and damaged so badly, especially Paul Dano's character, which is the most heartbreaking part of this movie, is the fact that this poor kid was taken from his family, that you get to see the reason why he was taken, or his family was the house that he was parked his RV in front of. That house was his house, and that's why he was there when he found the two daughters who went missing. And so that's why he was placed on the scene, and that's why he took them in, because all he wanted to do was play. And that's what's so heartbreaking about him being tortured throughout this entire movie, because he truly was innocent. He was this poor kid who was taken away from his family and truly damaged and poisoned by this woman that took him in as her own. And it's really dark, and it's really messed up. And so, like I said, this movie really is a maze of this mystery that you get to piece together from these two different perspectives, and it's kind of genius how it's plotted together. And then the ending happens, which is just incredible. You get to see Jake Gyllenhaal's character kind of reach the end of his rope, and like I said, he's losing his mind slowly. And when he finally pieces things together, and he goes to the aunt's house, and he finds Hugh Jackman's daughter, and he's driving through the snow, and the musical score by Johan Johansson during the scene is incredible. And he gets to the hospital, and it's heartbreaking because they don't know where Hugh Jackman is, and the aunt had taken him, put him underneath the car where she had been keeping the children, and you never get to know whether or not he gets out, because by the end of the movie, the final shot of this movie is Jake Gyllenhaal standing outside of the house. It's super quiet, and he hears the whistle that the daughters were looking for at the beginning of the movie, and he thinks he hears it, but then he kind of doubts himself, and he turns away, and he starts walking away, and then he hears it again, and he turns around, and then boom, credits. And I think it's kind of like she said, that maybe you'll last 24 hours down there, because he had been shot in the leg and he's bleeding out. So he's definitely alive by the end of the movie because you hear the whistle. Can he get him out in time and get him to the hospital? Who knows? I kind of think my interpretation of how the ending would go, at least how I would want it to go, is maybe he does get out, maybe he does get to the hospital, maybe he does get to see his daughter one last time. Because of all the terrible things that he has done and everything, either he goes to jail or maybe he dies right after seeing his daughter one last time. And that would be truly heartbreaking. I don't know. Who knows the true ending of this movie? It's left kind of ambiguous, which I love when movies leave things ambiguous. I think this movie really does lead you on this mystery, and you feel like you're a detective trying to solve this movie, or you also feel like a desperate father looking for their daughter throughout this entire film. And you get to see the movie from those two different perspectives and piece it together yourself, which I find absolutely just riveting throughout this entire movie. I love Prisoners. It's one of my favorite movies. Denis Villeneuve does a great job. He's one of my favorite directors besides Christopher Nolan. It's Denis Villeneuve. I love him as a director. So thanks guys for watching day 14 of the 30-day film challenge. I had a lot of fun talking about this movie. It's one of my favorites of all time. And tomorrow is going to be a very different video. It's going to be a movie that makes me extremely happy. We were talking about Chef. That's right. Jon Favreau's Chef is one of the happiest, most feel-good movies you will ever watch. I can't wait to talk about it. So subscribe to the channel. Let me know what you guys thought of Prisoners, or what movie made you depressed. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this topic as well. So subscribe to the channel, leave a like, comment below what your thoughts are, and I hope to see you all in my next one.